Okay.
I heard it.
So
Official.
I
We're
know we
on.
did it. We did it.
We made it.
So here is, well, first of all, would you mind introducing yourself to the people of whatever platform I'm posting this on?
Absolutely. Hi, people of whatever platform you find yourself on. My name is Candice. I am American immigrant now living in Denmark. I'm 34, a mother of one. Originally from Southern California and have been in Aarhus in Denmark for just about 8 years now, which is insane. So yeah.
Oh, it was 8 years. That's
Yeah. She's trying for her permanent residency in like June. So yeah,
congratulations. How's
let's
that
hope. Let's
process
hope.
been?
It's been honestly, I've just started looking into the visa, so that's why like having all the visa requirements, I was like, I know new to denmark.com, like it's the back of my hand at this point. But no, it's basically a process. A lot of it is like being here for 8 years is like the first standard. You can actually get a permanent residency after 4 years, I think, if you meet some other stipulations, which is like Danish language at a certain level. If you made a certain amount of money, I think, for the past few years, taking the Danish citizens test. So, like, you know, that like US citizens test that
Yeah.
people have to make,
Tell me about the
where like
presidents.
where most Americans also couldn't pass it. It's the same here. Like they have a Danish one where like the Danes are like, I don't even know if I would pass like Danish history. So I'm skipping that. But yeah, so you can make it shorter and get in 4 years, but I'm going for the 8 years. And I am now just getting confirmation that I fit all of those bits, making sure my Danish tests I took still count. And I've been working for a good amount of time here at like one job, so that helps for it. I have a child here, that helps. So yeah. So hopefully in June, catch me back. But the process is like 7 months, I think, even after I turn in the application. So then it's just waiting on a prayer at that point.
So quick question.
Yeah.
When did did you move with your little nugget or did you have your little nugget while you were in?
I had my nugget here, which was
Okay.
like insane. So I will be the first to say, like when I was younger, American mother propaganda, I was like, yeah, I'll have kids. Maybe I'll have like 3 or so. It'll be like fun and easy. But it was never, to be honest, like my focus. I was never like, that's my main goal. I wanted to travel. I always knew I wanted to travel and just like be around difference was always like where I was in. So I moved here in 2017. Did my, I don't know if we're getting into that, but did my master's, reunited with my partner. We were long distance for a while. So that was a big kind of point of me moving over. So did my education, started working, all that fun stuff. Then found out I was pregnant. And I say now, I'm like, I truly in this state, I would never have a kid in the States. I'm so sorry. Like I couldn't do it. Now knowing what actually goes into parenting, what actually goes into restoring my pelvic floor and my health as a person who births someone, what goes into actually like being able to provide for a child and the safety of that child, like that is something I could not take. Like I do not want to do that task in America. And I can say that clearly now because I lucked out in some ways of having a baby here. The Danish system, and I will say most countries that are not America, most countries actually are built to support families and to support children, in the financial support that you get for kids, in just the medical support I got. Um, that's a whole other topic we can get into, but like I shatter most of my friends and family's mind when I say that I paid total the equivalent of $50 during the whole time I was pregnant. And that $50 went towards my partner staying in the hospital for a third day. We get two, that's standard. He stayed an extra night with me. That was $50. The rest of all of my medical bills were absolutely paid.
Right. So on my page, so I am very joyfully child free.
Love that.
Yeah, I love that for me too. And I love other people's babies. So whenever we plan to hang out, I'm gonna hang out with you and your baby. I love
Yes, please
of
do.
other people's babies.
I love
And
that.
I find that a lot of the people that are on my page are either in this, not in the same space as me, as in like, ooh, I'm child free, but I love other people's baby, but just like solidly child free people.
Yeah,
And there are a lot of moms on my page too, because I find
yeah.
that the overlap between people who are child free and people who are intentional parents, it's the same circle.
it's a circle. No, that's why I have quite a few child-free staunch, and I love that for them, friends in my life. And I love being surrounded by that energy. One, because not everybody's exhausted with kids, but two, because like it's a different perspective. And I love having that. And also I just think any woman who's making a clear decision for herself is right by me. And intentional parenting, like that's the part, like I had a lot of smoke screens about what parenting would be and what's needed. And it is a job. Like it is something you need to sign up for. And if you want to do it well, like it is going to take a lot of energy. And so I think people who are so clear that like that's just not what they want in their life, like that is the best, because then we don't have, people who are feeling trapped few days when those babies are not longer cute babies, and their children and their people that you're raising, that people don't feel trapped in their life. But also like that's just also a lot of kids that might not have the best future, that are, I don't know, that we're saving from. I don't know. I just think having a difference of opinion, and I'm like so supportive, and I love having child-free energy around me. Honestly, it's comforting.
And look at us finding each other on TikTok randomly. That's so crazy. That's so
It's
crazy.
awesome. I love it.
So here's here's what we're going to be doing. I have a number of questions from my Patreon users. Shout out to you guys for sending in your questions. Deeply appreciate it.
Hey.
Um, let's address I find that a lot of these questions are less about the Denmark experience, which we will be
Sure.
discussing in another video, and more
Yeah.
about just the realities of what it is to leave the United States, to exist as a
Yeah.
Black woman in another space for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
So let's dive into as many of these as we can. And,
Okay.
if we have like little tangent spin-off, we're vibing.
Okay.
Vibing. It's
Okay.
fun.
I'll try. Feel free to always bring me back because it can go, but I will keep on topic as much as I can so we can get
Yapper to
through all
yapper,
the good
I
stuff.
understand.
You get it. You
So
get it.
we're gonna start off with some of the people from my fishbowl group. They
Ooh,
sent
good.
in
Okay.
one to I'm a journalist that works in beverage. So like I'm like, oh, my A1.
Fishbowl. My God. I want a fishbowl of a spicy margarita so bad right now. Stop. We're back on the questions. We're
We're
back
back
on the
onto
questions,
questions.
Shayna. We
I
can't.
feel that. I'm sorry. Okay, we're coming
Don't.
back. We're coming back.
We're
Okay.
back.
Question number one. How did
Yes.
you get over the fear of racism, sexism, and other forms of oppression in a new country before you moved there?
So simple. And the best answer to that is I didn't. Because so Denmark was not the first place I lived abroad. Was very lucky and fortunate enough to travel abroad. For the first time in Australia, I did a international like exchange abroad when I was still studying at university. So I was in Australia. Shout out to Newcastle for like 6 months.
Mhm.
Then after I graduated university, I was actually living in Paris for a year where I au paired. That's actually where I met my partner. So those two experiences I had before moving to Denmark. But I will say, I don't think you can accurately grapple with racism, sexism, all of those isms in a country that you're not in yet. As much as I am an over preparer, as much as I want to be like, yes, you could do that and all that, like a lot of it I realize now is like I learned by doing. I learned by grappling with those really sticky moments in the moment and being like, God, that doesn't feel good. Like, and I say, and it might sound crazy, but like, I didn't realize or I didn't get the concept of what my blackness meant until I traveled outside the States. Because growing up in like Southern California, very diverse, area, I was always surrounded by people who looked like me or different from me. So it didn't feel so crazy. So when I went to Australia, which is also still very diverse and open, I was already confronted with like, oh, people might not meet African American women. Like they don't have as strong of a concept of what that means. So I'm kind of breaking that barrier there, right? Same in Paris, and very much in Denmark. So I think each level of that has come with its own confronting of the isms, but it's taken time. Like I think the biggest case is like for the first 2 years, maybe in Denmark, like I was so severely uncomfortable with how much people were staring at me.
Mhm.
And I have a white partner, right? So he is very understanding, but also he's very empathizing, I should say, but might not understand fully, of course, my experience. So he was like, oh, they're just looking. He's like, honestly, like they don't see this many Black women here, so they're looking. It's seeing difference, right? But to me, again, growing up in America, like if someone's staring at you, you're like, we going or what?
Yeah,
Like that
different
can feel
cultural
like a
context.
threat. It's a different cultural context, but they're like honestly just like looking because they don't see people like me, right? So it's all of, and that took me 2 years to kind of like shed the weight of like, oh, I don't want to go out and I don't want to be perceived. And I'm still like coming out of that, honestly, in some ways of like, it's safe for me to be perceived. It's safe for people to look at me and me to not take that as something negative all the time. Um, but yeah, a long roundabout answer, but I think as much as you can kind of prepare yourself to be in those situations of understanding your difference, as long as you can feel grounded in yourself before, and knowing like having a really good just like sense of self, and safety system, which we can kind of maybe talk about. I'm sure it's going to be kind of a question. I think that's the best you can do, and then just know that you're gonna grow from it, and there are going to be those situations that you run into, and not all of them are going to be dangerous, but they're all going to be invitations to possibly have a conversation and invitations to reflect a little bit more about how you're feeling about you, I would say.
I think that, first of all, thank you for that. And I
Yeah,
think that I agree with what you're saying, and I think that the moving abroad and living in spaces abroad as a naturally intersected person puts you in positions to deepen your sense of identity in a way where when
absolutely.
you are, because I find that a lot of people ask me, oh my goodness, Shayna, is this place, because I travel so much for my job. Shayna,
Yeah,
is this place safe? Is that place safe? Is this city safe? Is that like, how do you do? And it's like, as a Black woman, racism and misogynoir exists everywhere. So that
everywhere.
concept of safety as it relates to that, like, is there anywhere in the world where we won't experience racism? No, because it is a global tragedy.
Yeah, yeah,
How that manifests itself in different spaces varies from place to place. In my personal experience, the places that I have felt the least safe as a Black woman country-wise is the United States and Russia.
yeah. Those would be my guesses, honestly, on a bingo card. Those would be my, and that's the thing. I think that's sometimes I love that you said that because it's like it's a global phenomenon. Talk about phenomenon. It's a global phenomenon because I've never felt as unsafe being a Black woman abroad than I did in when I was living in Texas and when I was traveling around the Bible Belt for work. Like that, those when I had to go to OU the week after, their whole team got freaking kicked out for like screaming the N word or whatever and doing all this craziness. Like I was at the campus the week after. Like those are the points that I've felt the most unsafe. Not in Australia, not in Paris, not in Denmark. And but the thing that's crazy about that is because of those experiences, because of the trauma or all that has come from that experience. For the first few years of me being in Denmark, that was kind of coloring to put it correctly, that was coloring my perspective of the place I was in, right? So one thing that again blows many of my friends' minds is like I forgot how incredible and soothing it is to walk alone at night. And I've not had that release and felt safe to do that ever. And now I have that daily in my life. And that like the weight that comes off my shoulder as a woman to be like, I can go home from a bar or just freaking the library at 1 to 2 a.m., put my headphones in, vibe, and feel safe to get home. And that is something that like I still will like have my stuff ready, but that's because of my perceptions of what's happened before in America, not my perceptions of what's actually happened in Denmark, because not much has happened to me, thankfully.
Hmm. Hmm. And like in Spain, the my first time like living abroad, I didn't realize how much stress was being held in my nervous system, like in
Oh, yes.
corporally,
Yeah.
until I spent extended time out of the United States. You hear a car backfire, and you could tell who all the Americans are that have not had that have that are living in the under the tables,
Square up,
under
squabble up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
both, but
It's
like,
squabble or hide. It's one of the two. Yeah.
yeah, and everybody's just like, "What are you doing?" And that happened to me my first time visiting Europe. There was a car that backfired, and then all the Americans ducked, and all of the locals that we were with were like, "What is this?" And it's like, "Oh, that wasn't a gun." And then immediately all of the locals are like, "I am so sorry that this
Yeah.
is your reality." So like
Yeah.
being in spaces long term that can release those experiences from your body, it is nothing short of healing. Nothing short of
It
healing.
nothing short of healing, beyond healing. But so going back to that question, that's where it's like, how do you prepare? I forget if that was how it was
Yeah.
like, how do you prepare? Or how do you get ready to know that you might face it, but that you won't have the tools to face it until you're in that space with that toolkit. The toolkit is the experience.
Mhm.
So it's getting really like grounded with yourself to be like, all right. And short answer, if you've made it this far in America, I think you'll be good. I think you'll be good in another space. At
Mhm.
least as far as going out there and trying it out, like you have more tools than you might even need in other areas, right? You have more tools than you think you have. And I think also like a lot of this is like, I know, testing it out, going outside of maybe your state, going outside of, going for a trip somewhere, maybe doing that first like resort trip. I know we talked about, but like doing those places to like stick your foot in and get cozy if that is something. Because again, like Shayna said, like it's your nervous system. It's a very much an internal thing of like getting comfortable doing it. But I think having all those small experiences that like I lived abroad for 6 months, then a year, and now like it set me up to kind of work that muscle of like knowing the conversations that might be had, but also working the muscle of like allowing things to be easier and safer in my actual environment like they are, not taking a lot of that baggage from my past experience.
Yes. And next question. How many questions do we have? We have about like seven more questions.
Cool.
Okay,
Love
great.
it. 7.
Next one. How did you make the move with little to no support in the original or new country?
Ooh, okay. So also going to spoil this. I will be the first to say I had a lot of support. And my main support is that I had a partner on the other side. So I will say moving single, yes, I moved single. But I know that it was a huge advantage having someone Danish in the country to kind of help me settle. However, what I did do by myself, of course, is like figuring out the course, figuring out my visa, applying, doing all of that stuff. So again, this comes from the experience of doing it before. But a lot of it, it's crossing the T's, checking the I's, being in community, asking other people who've done it, how their experience is. So I always continuously use my network of like, hey, you applied for this. Hey, you've done this. Like getting these questions out is important. But the biggest thing too is like wherever you're trying to jump into. So let's say I was doing my master's, that was how I was going and getting my visa to go to Denmark.
Okay.
Immediately as I was, looking at the masters, got accepted, like I got into that community quickly before I even moved to Denmark. I was kind of, and I'm a pretty gregarious person. And also I was like, I know it's important for me to establish community outside of my partners. I already knew that. I was like, I'm not trying to be hooked and only have his friends and only have his stuff. Like I'm a whole separate person. Uh, and I want to have my own community. Like that is also really strong. So even if you're moving with someone, have your own back first. Make sure you're going to be stable because you also don't want your
To be your
livelihood, maybe your
world.
visa, your world, like in one other place. It
Mhm.
will, one, rob you of the experience, but two, it's fickle. It's fickle. Relationships are fickle. You just don't know. You don't know, right? So yeah, so definitely ask around, do your research, get clear about where you're going, and build the community already. There's Facebook groups, there's other lots of American abroad groups. I went into my university and was like, hey, I'm starting this course. I'll be moving from California. Like, happy to have this, right? So I already had established like a cute little core community with my university. And then once I got here, I leaned into the international community quick. I was like, that's where I'm going to find my people. I'm not trying to assimilate to Denmark. They're going to probably see and hear very quickly I'm not Danish. So let's not make that a goal.
Hmm.
I learned that also very quickly. Like, I'm not trying to be Danish. I'm not trying to fool anybody and be Danish. I'm going to be myself here. And of course, respect the country and respect the customs, and respect the language as much as I can. But I'm also like, I'm going to do me. And that's going to make me feel better about everything. So yeah, how I did it, you're never alone. Use your allies, use your community, use the sources, have conversations like this, and build that kind of safety net, just like you would do financially. Do it communally, do it societally, do it personally as yourself, and like get yourself ready. Again, but I think also the biggest thing is like, don't have the perception that you're doing it alone. Even if you're solo traveling, you're always carrying your community if you choose to do so. So I think sometimes that stresses me out more if I'm like, I'm traveling alone. Oh my gosh, I have to do it all alone. It's like, that's it's not the truth though.
Hmm. I want to add one thing to that before we move on to the next
Yeah.
question. And it's that I think that a lot of people might feel like they are traveling alone. Like, sure, literally, if it is
Yes.
just
Yes.
you and your bag, you are traveling solo. But there
Yes.
are communities that can rally around you very quickly. But I think that
Absolutely.
in my experience, the it can feel more isolating, especially the first time, especially if the people that are in your immediate community in the States are naysayers, are doubters,
Absolutely.
are you sure you want to do that? Oh my goodness, when, not if, when things go bad, make sure that you do this, that, and the, mind you, these people have never spent,
Stepped
uh,
out of the country.
but like,
Or
oh,
is it safe? I was gonna say that because I was like, how much of you are doubting that it's safe versus all of the family people that are telling you? Because that's where I'm like, I've done the research and I feel good about this, but it's all these people that have never been to the country, naysayers. Why do you want to travel? Oh, is that going to be so hard? Oh, so that's a really good way of preparing is like get clear on what are your own doubts and what are other people's doubts that you're letting sink in.
mhm. And how much of their doubts are based in a reality that have any kind of fact, and how much of your doubts are based in any kind of reality that have some kind of fact. Oh, it's going to be so hard for me to make friends there. You don't know
Then
that.
it will. Then it will. That's your mind will listen, baby. If you think it's going to be hard, if you're going to, and that's why I say it's so much of mindset. If you're like, how do you tackle the racism and being alone and this, and I'm like, because I never thought of that honestly. Like and maybe that was too naive. And I see now I'm like, in some ways it was more naive, but in some ways I waited until I was confronted with it and then I dealt with it
Hmm.
rather than assuming I was going to have to go through all of these hurdles. I didn't know the hurdles. And sometimes that's where it's like the best part, what I love about travel is getting to that space where I'm like, I don't know. And that's okay. I don't know how the streets are going to connect. I don't know, but I'm going to discover it. And that's the fun part. Like, and that's okay. So when it
Hmm.
comes to these things, like you might not be able to know exactly how safe and what's the best neighborhood and what, but when you get there, if it's so much easier to do a lot of things when you get to the country. I mean, like that's
Hmm.
the hardest thing truly for financial reasons and everything is like getting that flight and getting out and getting the visa. Everything else truly I feel like is easier when you're there.
And the common sense that it takes to live well, not like, oh, I have X amount of hundreds of thousands of dollars in my bank account. No, no, no. The common sense that it takes to survive in the United States consistently, especially if you are a marginalized person, you
Yeah.
have so much internal support. You, the tools that you're saying, oh, listen, you have more tools than you might even need. Those are tools that we are using constantly in the US. There are things that I have written dissertations in school
Yeah.
about like communal, about whatever, that I don't, people are like, oh wow, Shayna, you're so smart. You like have all of this information that I can whip out whenever I want to.
Yeah.
But especially if you're like from us, if you're from a big city, you're fine.
That's why like when people from New York are like, is it gonna be okay? I'm like, girl, I barely go to New York. I'm stressed out by New York. You're gonna be fine. And then like that's what I'm
You
like,
go on
yo,
the subway in New York every day, you are
you catch the A train, mama. And I don't even know what the A train is or where it goes, but I know that you catch it. And I know that because of that, you're gonna be fine. And that's why I say this to like, I'm not at all being dismissive of the fears and of the very real concerns that people have. And to your point, in the States, like I didn't understand how much I was whipping out tools just to like just to beep.
Yep.
Where now I'm again, it took me truly, I would say like 4 or 5 years to really like unpack that. I'm like, I don't need all these tools. And or now I'm like, I get that whenever I need them, it's there. I don't need to carry it. Like I don't need to be ready and staunch for someone to fight me or someone to challenge me or someone to be whatever. I can just be like, oh, okay, boop, there, done.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to be a thing. Doesn't need to be a big thing.
Hmm. And I know you said you don't know where the A train is, like where it is or where it goes. That's the perfect example. The
Great.
A train is a circus.
I've heard enough about A trains. I'm like, that seems like stress. So stress is A train to me.
You never know. You never know. It could be a Broadway show. Somebody could light something on fire. They could come onto the A train with a python, especially when those kids get off at, you know what? It's fine, Shanna. We're moving forward. Next, what, what to do slash what to get in order before leaving the US?
Every pack of ranch dressing you can fit in your suitcase. Final answer. No, honestly, again, this is and I say this with love, and I say this like me when I we now do every other holiday season is kind of like our thing that we go back to the States. We'll see how long that lasts, but we go back to the States and then we alternate holidays here. But so I always have like a running list of like what do I need from the States? And I'll tell you as a, not so seriously, it's always food products. It's the vat of Vaseline. I need a vat of Vaseline that lasts me usually 1.5 trips, a vat of acetaminophen, a vat of some aspirin,
Mhm.
um, and then every spice, every Mexican spice I can shoulder is usually literally what's in my bag. And I say this to say like, depending on where you're going, again, I'm coming from places that like Australia, France, Denmark, like evolved. They have their own stuff. You can find it here. There's not much. There's really like medicine that you need, safety like safety blankets that you need, whatever makes you feel safe, grounded, bring that. Everything else, converters, wire, like all that shit that you think is like, what do I need to? You can
Mhm.
get that abroad, and it's better to get it abroad.
Yeah.
Buy local, mama. That's my biggest thing is like, again, look at the lists that are, there's plenty online of like what you need. You
Oh
need your
no.
passport, you need your visa,
Great.
you
The
need
key.
your wallet,
Mhm.
um, you need you, and you need some ranch dressing. Everything else you can get where you're hanging out. Again, I'm saying most places. It depends locally. But yeah, there's not really any other big things that I would say like around the board that you need before you leave is except for you and your mindset and your documents.
There is a quick thing. Okay, we're gonna skip very quickly to
Yeah.
not a fishbowl question just because it links so perfectly.
Mhm.
Hair products. What are your thoughts on hair products where you are at?
As my hair is wrapped up. So this is really good conversation. I love this. Again, I've been in Denmark about 8 years. It was the past 3 to 4 years that I was like, all right, it's time. Well, no, I found a black salon early, but now that I'm finding more than one black salons, right? Like that's the thing is like there was always the one black salon. It was called Afro Nordic. I was like, all right, I know what I'm getting. Afro Nordic check, right? Shout out to Stella in Aarhus. But no, it was like the one black salon. I was like, okay, so I found it, and she's from Africa too. So she was like also importing a lot of the products and stuff. So I was like, that's the place that everybody in this town knew where to go. But already since then, I found more women, especially some women like working out of their own homes. And I love to support mothers working out of their homes. I'm like, yes, that's where my money's going. Other Black women in the diaspora. So yeah, products in general stores, you can kind of find them here. Again, I'm depend like this is Denmark. This is also I would say France and Australia, like these places I've been. You can find them. You're gonna find it through your network. And this is why I say like get into an international network early, get into an international community early. And also it's like it's Reddit, it's Facebook being like, where are black products? There's other black people that have been to most places,
Mhm.
luckily. So I know like in Copenhagen, for example, there's far more options than there are in Aarhus. It's a little bit smaller of a city. So So yeah, I find products, or again, shop locally. I go online to Danish brands or German brands, German like places, and I find the products that sometimes it's exactly what I could find in the States, sometimes it's different, and I buy again locally. And yeah, I have my African black soap, I have my shea butter, I have my stuff, my African wraps. Like I found the stuff. Now, do I have the will to do all that with my hair? That's another question. That's another question.
One
That's why I
story.
pay. That's why I'll be getting my butterfly locks in about a week, so I don't have to worry about it. But yes, you can find products. Again, it's very much the network, but it's really fun too because then when you find that one salon, you're like, oh yeah, this is my place, and then you run into other internationals and it's kind of like a place of community. It's like a safe space. I always feel like it's like those third spaces, like the black salons and like black hair care spaces abroad. So yeah, definitely options for sure.
I completely agree with that. It's very similar here in Barcelona. There are a number of like hair stores that, and most of them have black hair products. There are
Yes.
two that I have. Once again, I had my one and then I moved, and now my one was further away. So I just like wandering in
Yeah, and
my
you're like,
neighborhood.
what do
And
we
I
do?
found my first like full setup black salon. Like most of the products are for black women. And then I looked at
Smells
all
like blue
the people that are
dream. You're
working.
like,
Yes, not
ah,
just can too. I heard uproarious laughter in the back where the actual salon was because all of the products are in the front. And then I looked at all the workers there. Everybody there is Afro-Latina. I'm like, this is what I'm talking about.
this is what I
We're
like to
everywhere.
see. Yes.
So,
And it's also so fun because this is again progressive Denmark, but so I have a daughter, obviously she's mixed. And so she's like discovering her hair texture is also fun. And her grandma, so my partner's mom, was saying it was such a sweet conversation. She was like, "Yeah, I was watching the news and there was a whole special talking about how little like resources there are to uh curly hair, just like different hair, black hair, Afro Latino hair, just like these different resources, and it's not as available in these products. And they were interviewing black salons and stuff in Copenhagen. And so for like her, I think it was like her Christmas gift, she got her this brand that's like from a black owned company in Denmark that's like specifically for like curly hair and kinky hair. And it was just like I loved it so much because it's like that's the part of like realizing that me just being me is also bringing other conversation, and there's more conversations being had in the wider that the wider space, and that people are, at least what I found here, open to understanding difference. But even that, like, she was so shocked and I was like, this is a reality, babes. But like she was genuinely so like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that you can't, like, she was asking me like, can you not really find products like in Maytas or at this, grocery store here, different places? I'm like, I can find some, but not really. I usually go here. And she was just like it really opened her eyes to that. And then now she's like, oh, I'm just going to shop from this and get her these types of products.
oh,
I like
very
that.
kind.
So
Yeah.
it's growing, it's open, and again, it's having these conversations and also being in community. And then it's like the hairstylist, like there's sometimes like a black salon and like another salon close by, and it's like when they're seeing the traffic from the black salon, money talks, right? Like they'll start to be like, interesting, maybe
Mhm.
we could carry some of those products, right?
Yeah.
And that's where it spreads. So now we're on hair care.
So we have, okay, there's like 4 minutes left.
Is
I
it gonna like cut
know
off? I hate that.
it does cut off. At some point, Shayna, there's already too many things on the plate right now. Okay.
We're
With
spinning. We're
the
spinning.
4-ish minutes that we have left,
Yeah, I'm taking this off. I'm sweating now. I love this.
might put a quick pause on these questions. We will
Okay.
jump back into these in part two. For anybody that's listening, if you have any additional questions, hop over to Patreon, type them in there. I'm gonna have a running list of questions. You could also type them in like the like on YouTube, you could put these your questions in the comment section. I will say priority is gonna go to the Patreon people. Sorry,
That's how it
sorry.
works.
That's how it works. Um, where can people find you? And what do you want to plug?
Oh my gosh. I'm going to plug kindness. Can I just plug be kind to yourself and others? Honestly, that's what I'm feeling. Where you can find me, I'm now on TikTok, which is there. So Rosalise with 3 E's. I'm sure Shayna will actually
I will.
spell it out somewhere on TikTok. And then through there, you can also find me. I write as well as Yap on Substack. So I have a Substack. You can find me there. Use it or lose it. And those are pretty much the places where I'm playing at now. If I'm not in conversation with lovely people like Shayna.
My goodness. Just fucking kindness. All of these will be in the description, and I will make a little pinned comment that has all of this information. Also, doop, doop, doop. Um, if you want to join my Patreon, the link for that will also be below. Doop, doop, doop. Okay, we have a little bit more time. Let's try and speed through one more question.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
Speed run it.
Um, let's see. What is your opinion on going to a country as a refugee versus going via regular citizenship? Or okay,
Damn it.
here's it's okay. Here's the two questions, and then you choose which one you'd like to respond to. Do
Okay.
most Black women, and we'll respond to this, and do most Black women leave the US, who leave the US, stay in a new country long term? Why do you think so, or why not?
Yes, that one I can answer quickly.
Okay.
Yes, because and I'll speak for myself because we realize how much we can be treated better in different countries, even if it still comes with some snap. Like it's no country is perfect. No
Mm.
country is perfect. Like Shayna said at the top of this, global phenomenon, racism, sexism, it's everywhere, unfortunately. But fortunately, you've dealt with it before. So I think Black women have dealt with so much, like the weight and also sometimes the weight of our history in America, that when we go abroad and when we can just let ourselves breathe a little bit, even if we're met with some stickiness, for me, it does not amount to me ever thinking like choosing American stickiness over abroad stickiness. Stickiness, let's say, is just all of the isms, is just a confrontation, is just hard times and strife, right? So, again, depending on everybody's situation, I would never count off, like, if I was in a rock and a hard place, America would be my plan D. Like, I would have some other options. I have a beautiful support system there that I could go to, and I love that it's there, but it's not for me, mama. I think that's also something as Black women realize when you have community with other Black women abroad too. Like there's just systems of support. There's a level of comfort that you reach that is very hard to give up again. So I think the Black women I've met abroad, they're like, yeah, you will not catch me in that land longer than Christmas break. Um, so
Wait, I
from
don't
my
want this to
experience,
cut you off. We will continue. I'm sending you my WhatsApp.
yes.
Thank you all. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.
And now how do I, we're gonna